The alien capital shimmered under the light of twin suns. Towering crystal spires stretched high into the sky, reflecting golden hues that danced across the streets below. Hovering vehicles hummed softly, gliding along invisible lanes, while crowds of beings with skin in colors Aaron had never imagined walked through the bustling plazas. Each figure moved with grace, their faces filled with expressions he could barely understand. Humans were rare here, and Aaron Chase, a young human soldier, could feel the curious stares burning on him as he walked through the city. He adjusted the fit of his armor, a polished white and silver suit that covered his body entirely. It wasn't just protective, it was also a symbol of his position. The suit made him look taller, broader, and more imposing than he really was. For a human among aliens, it gave him a certain presence, though he had learned over the years that armor could only hide so much. The real test was not in the armor, but in the mind and heart beneath it. Aaron's escort led him through a series of gleaming corridors, each lined with statues of the Empire's greatest figures. The air smelled faintly sweet, with a hint of metallic tang, a mix he found oddly pleasant. Voices echoed softly off the walls, speaking in languages he could not understand, yet he did not feel completely out of place. He had trained for moments like this, situations where humans were under scrutiny, measured against species far more advanced in ways both technical and cultural. At the heart of the palace, the main hall opened like a cavern of light. Crystal chandeliers floated above, casting multicolored beams across the polished floors. And there, seated upon a raised dais, was Princess Velira. She was young, only 19, but carried herself with the effortless authority of someone many decades older. Her skin shimmered with a soft iridescence, her eyes deep pools of violet that seemed to look straight through him. She wore a gown that flowed like liquid metal, and on her head rested a delicate crown that glittered in the sunlight streaming through the hall's windows. Aaron's escort halted, and he was directed to stand before the princess. The court's chamber was filled with other aliens, advisors, nobles, and soldiers, all watching with keen interest. Aaron could feel the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on him, and he straightened instinctively, as if his armor alone could project the confidence he sometimes lacked. Princess Velira tilted her head slightly, examining him. Then, with a voice that was smooth and musical but carried an unmistakable edge, she spoke. "So, this is the human soldier we've been hearing about," she said, her words cutting through the air like a blade. The court chuckled softly at her tone, sensing the amusement she intended. Aaron said nothing at first. He had been mocked many times, and he had learned that not all insults required immediate reaction. Often the strongest reply was patience, the quiet kind that waited for the right moment. He simply let his gaze meet hers, steady and unflinching. Velira's lips curved into a teasing smile. "Is that armor really necessary?" she asked, gesturing at the suit that encased his body. "Or are humans simply too weak to face the world on their own?" The hall erupted in soft laughter. Some of the nobles whispered to each other, casting glances at Aaron. The message was clear. Humans were seen as fragile, as species not fully capable of standing on their own without tools, weapons, or machines. Aaron took a slow breath. He looked down at his hands, then back at the princess. Instead of responding with words or anger, he did something the court did not expect. He reached for the clasps of his armor. Piece by piece, he removed it, revealing the plain uniform beneath, simple and functional. The final piece fell to the floor with a quiet thud. Silence filled the hall. The nobles exchanged shocked glances, some even gasped. The princess's violet eyes widened, though she quickly masked surprise with a smirk. Aaron's movement was deliberate and calm, not a gesture of defiance, but one of quiet truth. He had nothing to prove through armor. His confidence came from something deeper, his mind, his courage, and the knowledge of his own strength. He turned slightly, walking toward the exit of the dais. His steps were measured, not rushed, but firm enough to draw attention. The hall seemed to hold its breath as he moved, the hum of the crystal chandeliers echoing faintly around him. Velira watched him, a mixture of curiosity and disbelief in her gaze. The walk away was not one of retreat, it was a statement. Humans did not always rely on armor or machines to define their worth. Aaron's unarmored presence, his calm and steady steps, said more than words could. And even as he moved, he sensed the subtle shift in the court's energy. Respect, or at least intrigue, was beginning to replace mockery. Once he reached the edge of the dais, he turned slightly to glance back at the princess. Humans face the world as we are, he said softly, his voice carrying just enough to be heard by those nearby. Not all of us need armor to show our strength. Then, without waiting for response or applause, he walked away, leaving the court to ponder his words. Princess Velira remained seated, her expression unreadable. A faint smile played at the corners of her lips, though it did not reach her eyes. The audacity of the human soldier intrigued her. She had expected rage, embarrassment, or at least a timid retreat. Instead, he had shown poise, quiet confidence, and an unusual strength of character. It was something she had not encountered often in her court. As Aaron exited the main hall, he felt the eyes of the court on his back. Some nobles whispered, others simply stared. He did not look back. There was no need. He had already made his point. The armor was gone, but the message remained. Humans were more than what appeared on the surface. They could stand, think, and act in ways even highly advanced species did not anticipate. Outside, in the gardens that surrounded the palace, the air was cooler, fresher. Soft breezes rustled the leaves of trees that shimmered with alien colors. Aaron paused for a moment, letting the calm of the gardens wash over him. The city of Zoria stretched below, gleaming under the twin suns, filled with life and motion. And though he was far from home, he felt a sense of purpose, a quiet reassurance that humans had a place here, even if the aliens did not yet understand it fully. Somewhere behind him, he could sense Princess Velira's gaze still following him. It was not anger, nor was it mockery now. There was curiosity, a spark of interest, perhaps even respect, though she would never admit it openly yet. Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The princess had challenged him in public, and he had responded not with force or pride, but with calm assurance and integrity. That, he knew, would leave a stronger impression than any display of weapons or armor ever could. The gardens led to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. Aaron walked there, alone now, letting his mind wander. He thought about the empire, about its strength and sophistication, and about the people who called it home. He thought about the young princess, her sharp words and sharper mind, and how a single gesture could challenge expectations and begin a new understanding between worlds. Humans were outsiders here, yes, but humans were adaptable, creative, and resilient. Aaron thought about the countless battles and challenges humanity had faced on Earth. Even in the smallest, most overlooked ways, humans had a way of surviving, thriving, and surprising those who underestimated them. He allowed himself a small smile. The armor had been removed, but the real test was only beginning. As the twin suns dipped closer to the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Aaron felt a quiet determination settle within him. The princess's mockery had been just that, words. His actions had spoken louder, and in the days to come, he would show that humanity's strength was not in armor or weapons, but in courage, intelligence, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Somewhere in the palace, Princess Velira leaned back in her seat, her violet eyes narrowed slightly. She had expected a human to react with anger or embarrassment, but Aaron's composure had thrown her off balance. It was a fascinating reaction, one she had never quite seen before. And now, a new game began, not one of mockery or insult, but one of understanding and testing limits. She would watch him closely, intrigued to see how far this human soldier could go, and what lessons he might teach even the most advanced alien minds. Aaron walked through the garden paths, the soft glow of alien lanterns beginning to light his way. Every step was measured, thoughtful, and purposeful. He felt the hum of the city around him, the pulse of life in a world that was not his own, yet one he was determined to understand. And so the human soldier walked away, unarmored but unbroken, leaving behind a court that would remember the lesson he had taught without a single swing of a weapon. Respect, curiosity, and perhaps a touch of awe began to replace laughter, and somewhere deep within the palace, Princess Velira realized that this was not the end, but only the beginning of a story she would never forget. Aaron walked along the wide garden paths, feeling the alien world pulse with life around him. The plants shimmered in colors he had never seen before, shifting subtly as the twin suns moved across the sky. Tiny creatures flitted between the branches, their wings reflecting light like small fragments of crystal. For a moment, the human soldier allowed himself to be distracted by the beauty of this foreign world, but his mind remained sharp. He had work to do, and understanding the alien empire would require more than strength. It would require insight. The princess had made her mockery clear, but Aaron knew that this was only the surface of her challenge. Velira was not cruel for the sake of cruelty. She was testing him, gauging the measure of humanity. He had responded with calm, but he knew the real tests would come soon. He had to prove that humans were more than what aliens expected. The armor had been a symbol, and removing it had been the first statement. Now, it was time to show what lay beneath. The gardens led to a terrace overlooking the city. Aaron leaned against the railing, watching as the sun's light danced across the floating vehicles and crystal towers. The city was alive with motion, but beneath the surface, he could sense a rigidity. The aliens had built a civilization of precision, of rules and structures that rarely allowed for deviation. Humans, in contrast, thrived in unpredictability. It was this difference that could become a strength. A voice broke his thoughts. "Impressive," said Velira, stepping out onto the terrace with a quiet grace. She moved as if she owned the very air around her, though there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Aaron did not turn immediately. He allowed her presence to be noticed, not by confrontation, but by calm awareness. "I see you have found your way here," she said. Her tone was softer than before, but it carried the same sharpness. "Few humans have the patience to navigate our gardens without assistance." Aaron finally turned to face her. "I find that observation helps," he said simply. "The world is easier to understand when you take the time to see it fully." Velira raised an eyebrow. "A soldier who observes rather than acts. Interesting." She walked closer, her gaze assessing him. "Do you think your species truly understands us, our empire, our ways?" Aaron smiled faintly. "Perhaps not fully. But humans have a way of learning quickly and adapting faster than most expect. We do not rely solely on what is given. We think, we experiment, and we act. Sometimes that is our greatest strength." The princess paused, as if weighing his words. There was something in the way he spoke, something confident yet humble, that intrigued her. She had seen many species throughout her short life, but humans were rare visitors, and rare visitors often carried unexpected lessons. Over the next few days, Aaron became a visible presence in the palace. He attended meetings with alien advisors, quietly observing their strategies and noting the small flaws in their plans. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did contribute, his suggestions were practical and thoughtful. Slowly, whispers began to circulate through the court. This human, who appeared so fragile without his armor, seemed to understand the complexities of the Empire better than many of the aliens themselves. Velira watched him closely. At first, she found his calm confidence irritating. How could a species so young, so untested in the wider galaxy, possess such insight? Yet the more she observed, the more she realized that Aaron's approach was not simple or naive. He did not rely on intimidation or power. He relied on understanding, on seeing the world as it truly was. One morning, the princess summoned him to a small observation chamber overlooking the spaceports. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved through the air, docking and departing in a precise, orchestrated flow. Velira gestured for him to step closer to the window. "Tell me what you see," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Aaron studied the scene. "Efficiency is high," he said. "Operations are precise, but there is little room for error. A single unexpected event could disrupt the entire flow." Velira nodded slowly. "And what would you do if such an event occurred?" Aaron turned slightly, meeting her eyes. "Humans are used to unexpected events. We improvise, adapt, and find solutions where others see only obstacles. Sometimes the unplanned approach is the strongest." The princess regarded him silently for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps you are more useful than I first thought," she said. That evening, a diplomatic challenge arose. A neighboring system had requested assistance with a trade negotiation, but the alien advisors were bogged down in protocol and rigid expectations. Aaron was quietly asked for input. Standing before the holographic map, he suggested a solution that required neither force nor ceremony, only a careful arrangement of dialogue and timing. The aliens followed his lead hesitantly, expecting failure. Yet the negotiation concluded successfully, and the neighboring system expressed gratitude and respect. Velira observed quietly from the side, a hint of admiration in her expression. She had expected humans to be limited, constrained by their lack of advanced technology or experience in interstellar politics. Yet, Aaron had demonstrated that human creativity, patience, and understanding could rival, even surpass, methods that had been honed over centuries. Over the next few weeks, the bond between Aaron and the princess evolved in subtle ways. She challenged him openly, testing his patience, intelligence, and moral compass. And he responded consistently, not with arrogance, not with violence, but with steady, thoughtful action. Each time, he revealed a strength that the aliens had underestimated. Humans could thrive where rules were strict, technology was advanced, and expectations were high, simply by thinking differently and caring about consequences beyond immediate gain. One afternoon, Valira approached him with a more direct challenge. "If your species is as clever as you claim, prove it," she said, leading him to a simulation room deep within the palace. Holographic displays flickered to life, depicting a star system in chaos. Planets teetered on the edge of destruction, and alien fleets scrambled to stabilize the situation. "This is a test," she explained. "You must find a solution that saves the system without causing unnecessary harm. Our technology is advanced, but it is predictable. I want to see what humans can do differently." Aaron studied the simulation carefully. He noted the movement of each fleet, the planetary alignments, and the fragile balance of diplomacy between the worlds. The aliens had relied on brute force and rigid protocol. A single mistake would result in disaster. He considered his options, weighing each possible action against the potential consequences. He began to direct the fleet subtly, not with commands, but by influencing the outcomes through strategy, timing, and persuasion. He suggested diplomatic messages, rearranged supply lines, and coordinated relief efforts in ways that the aliens had not anticipated. Slowly, the balance shifted. The planet stabilized, conflicts eased, and the system's survival was secured, all without a single destructive strike. Valira watched, fascinated. She had expected a failure or at least a messy compromise. Instead, she saw ingenuity, empathy, and precision intertwined. Humans, she realized, were not defined by armor, weapons, or raw strength. Their advantage lay in adaptability, understanding, and the ability to act in ways that others did not expect. When the simulation concluded, the princess turned to him. "You have proven more than I anticipated," she said quietly. There was no mocking tone in her voice this time, only genuine acknowledgement. "Your species has potential, Aaron, perhaps more than even I understood." Aaron nodded, accepting the praise without arrogance. "Potential means little without action," he said. "Humans have survived through creativity, persistence, and cooperation. That is what I bring, not just skill, but perspective." Over the following days, Aaron continued to work closely with the alien advisors, guiding operations and offering insight. The court began to view him differently. No longer was he the awkward, armored human who had been the target of ridicule. He had become a respected presence, a bridge between human and alien understanding. Valira, however, remained the most important observer. She had learned a lesson in humility and perspective. Aaron's strength was quiet but undeniable. He had shown her that humans could succeed not through force, but through thought, patience, and empathy. And she could not ignore the lesson, nor the possibility that this human could change how her empire viewed an entire species. One evening, as the twin suns dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystal towers, Valira approached Aaron once more. "You have a gift," she said softly. "Your actions are subtle yet effective. You do not seek recognition, yet you earn it." "That is unusual for anyone in this court." Aaron met her gaze evenly. "Recognition is not always the goal," he replied. "Understanding and results matter more. Humans learn from observation, from mistakes, and from trying different ways to solve problems. That is how we grow stronger." The princess studied him for a long moment, then nodded. There was respect in her eyes now, tempered with curiosity. "Perhaps humanity is not as weak as we believed," she said. "Perhaps there is much for us to learn from your kind." Aaron smiled faintly. "And perhaps there is much humans can learn from yours," he said. "But understanding is the first step. Everything else comes after." As the night settled over the alien city, the court's view of humanity began to shift. The young soldier had removed his armor and walked away, and in doing so, he had revealed the true strength of his species. Not in weapons, not in technology, but in thought, adaptability, and courage. Valira watched him walk through the gardens once more, a quiet smile on her face. The test had begun, and she knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater. But for the first time, she felt a spark of anticipation rather than mockery. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also remarkable. And in this vast galaxy, that unpredictability might just become an extraordinary advantage. Aaron continued his work, quietly observing, guiding, and learning. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove the strength of humanity. He had shown that armor was not necessary, that appearances could deceive, and that true power often lay in the mind and heart. And somewhere within the palace, the princess realized that she had underestimated the human soldier. Aaron was not merely a guest in her world. He was a teacher, a strategist, and perhaps a glimpse of the future of human-alien collaboration. The days passed, the simulation tests continued, and the human's ingenuity became increasingly evident. The court whispered, the advisors learned, and the princess watched intently, each moment reinforcing a single undeniable truth. Humans were extraordinary in ways no one had expected. Aaron's journey had only just begun. The mockery had ended, but the real challenges, diplomatic, strategic, and moral, lay ahead. And he was ready, not with armor, but with the enduring strength of his species. Intelligence, courage, and the ability to act where others hesitated. Aaron stood on the highest observation platform of the palace as the city of Zoria glowed beneath him. The crystal towers reflected the soft light of the stars, and the steady movement of ships in the distance showed a civilization that believed itself perfectly balanced. Yet beneath that balance, tension had begun to grow. The Empire was facing a problem that technology alone could not solve, and for the first time, many were turning to a human for guidance. The warning had come quietly at first. A distant system near the edge of the Empire had begun to fail. Not because of war or invasion, but because of collapse. Trade routes were breaking down, political trust was fading, and several species in that system were preparing to isolate themselves. If that happened, the instability could spread like a slow disease through nearby regions. The alien advisors gathered in the main council chamber, their voices filled with concern. Their plans were complex, precise, and heavily dependent on forceful intervention. They spoke of fleets, strict enforcement, and technological control. Princess Velira listened from her elevated seat, her expression serious. She had learned enough from watching Aaron to know that their plans might only make things worse. Aaron was invited to speak. The room fell silent as he stepped forward. He was no longer wearing armor. He stood in his simple uniform, hands relaxed at his sides, posture calm. Some of the older nobles still doubted him, but many now watched with cautious respect. This system is not breaking because it lacks control, Aaron said evenly. It is breaking because its people no longer trust each other. You cannot fix that with fleets or commands. Murmurs spread through the chamber. One advisor spoke sharply, saying that trust was irrelevant when stability was at risk. Aaron listened without interruption, then nodded. Humans faced this problem many times, he said. On our own world and beyond it, when systems fail, it is often because people feel unheard. If you force them, they resist. If you listen, they cooperate. Princess Velira leaned forward slightly. And what do you propose? She asked. Aaron took a slow breath. We send no fleets, no threats. We send aid teams made of multiple species. We open dialogue. We accept that not every solution will follow protocol, and we allow them to help shape the answer. The chamber erupted in debate. The idea seemed risky, even weak to many. Yet Velira raised her hand, silencing the room. We will try the human approach, she said. If it fails, responsibility is mine. The decision shocked the council, but none challenged her openly. Preparations began immediately. Aaron joined the delegation, traveling with diplomats, engineers, and mediators from several species. As their ship entered the troubled system, the tension was clear. Communication signals were scattered, stations were underpowered, and fear lingered in every transmission. Instead of issuing commands, Aaron listened. He met with leaders from different worlds, hearing their fears and frustrations. He asked questions others never thought to ask. He encouraged shared solutions instead of imposed ones. Slowly, something changed. Trade talks reopened. Shared repair efforts began. People who had been ready to retreat into isolation started to cooperate again, not because they were forced, but because they felt respected. Weeks passed. The system stabilized. When the delegation returned to Zoria, news of their success had already spread. The court was filled with quiet excitement. Princess Velira watched as Aaron entered the hall, noticing how the nobles now regarded him differently. There was no laughter, no mockery, only attention. She stood and addressed the court. "We believed strength came from control," she said. "We believed technology made us superior, but today we have learned otherwise." Her gaze rested on Aaron. "This human showed us a different kind of strength, one built on understanding, patience, and trust." The court bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Later that evening, Valira met Aaron in the palace gardens. The air was calm, filled with the gentle glow of alien lanterns. "When I mocked you," she said quietly, "I thought armor defined you. I thought removing it would expose weakness." Aaron smiled slightly. "Humans learned long ago that armor can hide fear as easily as it hides strength." She nodded. "You walked away, and in doing so, you challenged everything we believed." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city lights below. "My people still have much to learn," Valira said. "So do yours, but perhaps together we can do better." Aaron inclined his head respectfully. "That's all humans ever hope for, a chance." In the days that followed, agreements were signed. New exchange programs were formed. Humans were no longer seen as fragile outsiders, but as valuable partners. Stories spread through the empire of the human soldier who removed his armor and changed an empire without firing a single shot. Far beyond Zoria, other civilizations took notice. And among the stars, humanity's reputation quietly shifted, not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as problem solvers, as listeners, as a species whose greatest strength was not what they carried on their bodies, but what they carried within. Aaron later stood aboard a ship preparing to return home. Princess Valira came to see him off. "You will be remembered here," she said. "So will you," Aaron replied. As the ship lifted into the stars, the alien princess watched until it vanished from sight. She knew the galaxy had changed, not through power, but through humility. And somewhere between the worlds, a simple truth echoed quietly: never judge a human by their armor.